let's talk a little bit about some of those things that might not necessarily be totally legal. So between 2010 and 2018, Mr. Trump wrote off some $26 million in unexplained consulting fees as a business expense across nearly all of his projects. In most cases, the fees were roughly 1/5 of his income. Mr. Trump reduced his taxable income by treating a family member as a consultant, in many cases, Ivanka Trump herself, and then deducting the fee as a cost of doing business. The IRS has pursued civil penalties against some business owners who devised schemes to avoid taxes by paying exorbitant fees to related parties who are not in fact independent contractors. So look, that may seem complicated. It's not complicated. I get paid to do a job. I take 1/5 of that. I say I needed that contractor's help to do it. So I give my relative the money, so it's still in my family, and pretend that that was a cost of doing business rather than just a significant portion of what I was paid. Right. So it's not only avoiding taxation right then, it's also hypothetically skirting the estate tax laws and things like that. You cannot simply artificially say, I need to pay my daughter something. I'm gonna pay her $1 million to make me a glass of lemonade. You can't do that. That is actually tax fraud in this case. So that is something that hypothetically could get looked into.
I feel like the reason Trump said okay to having children was to use them to do tax crime. He's like it's like a parent, opening a credit card in their kid's name and then running up the bill. It's the same thing, but on a really big scale. Yeah, just because they're your kid. And he's been using his kids as an excuse this entire time. And there's been no accountability, meaning the Trump organization, he said, well, Ivanka and Eric, or what's the other one? Junior, not Eric. Let's be real. Ivanka and Junior are gonna run the business, kids. Have a good time, exactly. Well, that's not divesting of the holdings in the Trump organization. So what is that? Again, all of this is once again layers of infuriating, but for me, it's mostly why now, 4 years after this, we're not surprised. Why? Did we ever think that Trump was gonna obey or follow any norm? Oh yeah, well, most presidents release their tax returns. Who cares? He won't. Write it down, America, make it a law.
Exactly, all of this should be laws. That's, if that could be one of the silver linings that comes out of this garbage period of American history, it's that the laws probably won't save us. Even the Constitution might not, but the norms are nothing. They're not even icing. They're like the flavor in a LaCroix. I guess technically they're there, sort of. Anyway, okay, a little bit more to catch you up on. So let's see. Cost of haircuts. He wrote off $70,000 paid to style his hair during The Apprentice. Now, this is the one bit of news I actually like, because he's ripped off a lot of people in his life, but that hairstylist was definitely ripping him off because he did not get $70,000 worth. But anyway, no, you can't just write off literally anything. It's necessary expenses. Nobody can say that $70,000 is necessary for hair for a single year. So that for a normal person could get you in trouble.
Especially not that hair.
Yeah, especially that
hair. That hair. Your stylist has been taking you for a ride.
Exactly.
That's obviously not his. Sorry, just gonna say that's Ivanka. That $70,000 is Ivanka.
Exactly, yeah. And so you have the Seven Springs property. So this is a property that he was planning to make a bunch of money on. Then he wasn't able to develop it the way that he wants. So he got something related to a conservation easement that basically says that I'm gonna be doing work on this. It's gonna be an investment someday. So just let me use all of this to write off taxes for now. And then someday, no, I swear it's totally legitimate business. Someday it's gonna make me money. And then they just lived there for years and years. And in multiple interviews, the Trump boys were saying, it's our compound. We had fun riding ATVs there and everything. It wasn't a legitimate investment property at all. It was just a place that they lived while reaping literally tens of millions of dollars in tax benefits just off of that. That's not everything in this document. That's off of that one property. So that should certainly be looked into. Now, there is a response from Trump organization lawyer, Mr. Garten, that I wanna give just because it's hilarious, saying over the past, so initially, by the way, really fast. So initially they said, every fact in this is false. So the New York Times asked for a demonstration of some of the numbers that were false. And they came back with, okay, technically some of the stuff about his income tax might be false. And then they said this, which sounds like it's demonstrating that, but I'm gonna explain how it's not. So they said over the past decade, President Trump has paid tens of millions of dollars in personal taxes to the federal government, including paying millions in personal taxes since announcing his candidacy in 2015. Now that sounds like they're saying, no, it wasn't $750 in personal income taxes, he paid millions, but that's not what it's saying. That is conflating different sorts of sort of optional taxes like paying into Social Security, Medicare, things like that. Maybe he paid some of that because you apparently can't get around it. But the income taxes, which they are not talking about there, they don't dispute that those numbers are actually accurate.
Yeah, in fact, the New York Times clarifies this is not personal tax. This is business tax. This is his ventures that he's been skirting on. So they named that. But whatever, the Trump organization and Trump lawyers are like, people don't read, hey.
Yeah, and by the way, we're gonna get to Trump's response. We're gonna give him the chance to respond to the extent that he can, since speaking isn't his strong suit. But I want you to understand how dishonest he's being up until this point. In 2018, Trump announced, okay, so really fast to lay the groundwork for this, you have actual tax returns, and then you have personal financial disclosures. Now, Trump says and is now saying, you don't need to see my taxes, you've got my personal financial disclosure. But the thing is, personal financial disclosures are basically whatever you want them to be. You can make up all sorts of stuff in there, you can exaggerate things, and I will demonstrate how egregious it can be. So in 2018, in his annual financial disclosure, he said that he had made $434.9 million. His tax records in that year, though, show that he claimed $47.4 million in losses. That is a $500 million difference between the documents he wants you to look at and the documents he is sending to the government to personally benefit from. So when he comes at you telling you again in the future don't need to see my taxes, you can just see these documents, understand he can be lying to the tunes of literally billions of dollars in those. So anyway, that's the most important information. There is so much more in this, but we simply cannot go into everything. Perhaps in future days this week we'll delve into more parts of this, but I do think that in theory, this might affect some voters. It certainly should. The fact that he is such a con man, that he apparently doesn't care anything about contributing to this country that he implies that he loves so much. Not to mention the fact that he might very well have broken the law in more ways than most people could even imagine. I mean, bear in mind, where's the reference I had here? Like Wesley Snipes, didn't he go to jail for tax avoidance?
Right. Lauryn
Tons
Hill.
of people are in jail for this stuff. Apparently their lawyers aren't as skilled. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm so mad. Like also just thinking about like Lauryn Hill, Wesley Snipes, both black celebrities. Yeah. Cool. Maybe there's a little bit of discrimination even at that high level, even in the millions of dollars. Sure, there is. Why not? Hollywood starlets who make hundreds of millions of dollars are still making hundreds of millions of dollars less than their male counterparts. This stuff happens all the time. I want everyone to remember this kind of grifting, this kind of fraud. You know who pays for it? We do, the actual taxpayers. Working people are subsidizing this grift. We do it every single day. We're not only responsible for subsidizing our communities and having taxes that subsidize everything from wars to schools, but we're subsidizing these MFers' ability to get away with this kind of fraud. Because the money's gotta come from somewhere, right? The money has gotta come from somewhere, and it's coming from working people. The last thing I'll say is when Paul Ryan comes back, because he is waiting in the wings, and every day I'm like, where's Paul Ryan? Where's Paul Ryan? When's he coming back? When's he coming back to claim he never enabled Trump? No. And the deficit. No, honey, no. You never get to talk about the deficit ever again. Close all your loopholes, close them right up. Let's make the tax structure fair, and then maybe I'll let you talk about the deficit.
Yeah, and by the way, that list, whatever list, I don't know what we're calling it, the list that Paul Ryan is definitely on. Understand that at least he went away. There are other people who didn't even have the decency to go take a breather for a few years that are going to claim You don't think Marco Rubio is gonna be talking about how he stood up to Donald Trump, and Ted Cruz, big alpha man with the weasel beard, Ted Cruz, the Confederate ferret as the Confederate, as you pointed out. He stood up to Trump. No, you could have, you didn't. And also a reminder that while Donald Trump doesn't pay taxes while talking about America First, undocumented immigrants pay millions of dollars in state taxes, even in the reddest states. They contribute, and thank you for doing that. Undocumented immigrants make America stronger in more ways than we could possibly count. Thank you for everything that you have and continue to contribute to America. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.